Hello everybody, it's Drake again, and I will be continuing in this video today my best press series. Now, I think I've only done 2 of those so far, and I have a decently sized list of other presses I want to showcase, but I have a special reason for the press today, the Early English Text Society, which I have mentioned before on my channel, but haven't dedicated a specific interesting video on it. So the reason why I want to make a video on the Early English Text Society today especially is because I am planning on making a pretty in-depth video on the Oxford English Dictionary that you can see behind me here. And that gets me to why I'm making a video about the Early English Text Society. So the Early English Text Society was founded in 1864 by Frederick Furnivall, a British member of the Philological Society. Now, what's the Philological Society? That was the society that had a group of members in 1858 decide that they needed a better English dictionary, because you have Samuel Johnson's dictionary and a couple that came after, but really the main issues with them is that they were extremely small, they had almost no words in them, and they were explicitly prescriptive. So they were taking one person's way of speaking and telling everyone that they needed to speak like me, effectively. And so this Philological Society decided in 1858, hey, we need to make a new English dictionary, which is actually the name of my edition, because Oxford hadn't gone totally on board whenever they started making it. It was colloquially called the Oxford English Dictionary, before it was officially called that, but a new English dictionary based on historical principles. So they had to think about, well, what are we going to do with this dictionary? Okay, we're going to collect pretty much any word that's used outside of one person. Like if a word is used in text, we're pretty much going to include it. But, the task is enormous. How are they going to collect this? Is it just going to be 10 guys in the Philological Society collecting stuff? Of course not. That wouldn't work. They would get a very small sliver of words. So what they did is they were influenced by the Grimm brothers, who were putting together their own German dictionary, and they enlisted the help of readers. But one of the limiting factors of the readers is that the readers can only read what has been printed. And, what if a book is hard to get? What if a book has never been printed, like in a manuscript form or something like that? So, in 1864, Furnivall started the Early English Text Society, and its goal was to either reprint books that were hard to get a hold of but might have valuable quotations for the oldest usage of a particular word in English, which is one of the things the dictionary was looking for, or first-time printings of books that had never been printed. Maybe only they're in manuscript form, or maybe they were never widely available in a scholarly edition, that kind of thing. And so that's what they did. A couple of very famous people that were involved or subscribers to the Early English Text Society. You have, of course, Furnivall started it himself. Walter Skeat is very important if you know James Joyce, because James Joyce loved Skeat's etymological dictionary, which was involved in the Oxford English Dictionary. Alfred Lord Tennyson was a subscriber. And also this really obscure philologist from Oxford, J.R.R. Tolkien, actually edited an entire volume for the Early English Text Society, and I have it here. It is I don't know exactly how to say it, I'll be honest, because it's the Middle English and I don't have my pronunciation down totally, but Ancrin Wis. It's basically a manual for an anchoress, which is a female hermit for religious reasons. And Tolkien edited this, and it was published in 1962. It least this edition. Let's see if that was the earliest printing of it. But yeah, 1962. And yeah, Tolkien, of course, Lord of the Rings, but he was a philologist, and really a pretty important philologist too. So this was his big contribution to English philology. Along with that, we have a book that was edited by Walter Skeat, and this one is from 1869. So very early in the trajectory of the publications of Early English Text Society. And this is The Vision of William Concerning Piers the Plowman. And this, of course, is the B text. This is the spicy text. This is what the peasants were carrying when they beheaded some rich guys in the Peasants' Revolt of 1381. This is also a really important book if you're thinking about Geoffrey Chaucer, if you like the Canterbury Tales. Because as you know, the plowman is one of the figures that's in the convoy, or whatever you want to call it, the pilgrimage party. And he never gets to the plowman. And it's interesting to look into why. Maybe it's because the wealthiest man in England at the time was his patron. Who knows? I mean, but anyway, William Langland, amazing book here. Piers the Plowman, and Skeat edited all the editions, the A, B, and C text. The B text is the coolest. Also, we have in a very important book. Tolkien is famous for saying that this is really the English Poetic Edda, because it has so many important references to early English mythology. And that is Layamons Brut. Let me hold it up here, get the edition correct. Layamons Brut, if you could see that. And that's in 2 editions. And of course, the very famous emblem, King Alfred's insignia. And then I have to say my 2 favorites are next. And I believe I've showed them both before, but they are both manuscripts. So all the books I've already showed you are scholarly editions of the work in question. And they are printed to show the original Old or Middle English in the original spelling. But they're not in manuscript form. The next 2 I'm going to show you are in manuscript form. I do also have a couple other Early English Text Societies, but I'm confining myself to the most interesting ones today. So, one of the absolute coolest ones I've ever found is Beowulf. And this is the Beowulf manuscript. So this is the handwriting of the scribe in the 11th century AD who wrote this down. Could have been 10th century, 9th century, no one really knows, but it was pretty early. And here is an example of the handwriting of someone 1,000 years ago. And what I love about this book too is that it is also transcribed on the facing page. So if you're having trouble reading the handwriting of someone 1,000 years ago, even though it's still technically English, Old English, can be tricky if you don't get the hang of it. So you can read it all there. And yeah, just an awesome book. Highly recommend if you like English literature at all, try to get this manuscript. Unfortunately, they don't reprint the facsimile of manuscripts because their logic is, oh, you can find one digitally, but digitally doesn't compare to this. I mean, when you can crack it open and you can imagine being the person 1,000 years ago reading this for the first time, it's just amazing. Just amazing. And then the last one I will show is printed in an interesting way. It's printed as if it's the manuscript itself in like little fascicles or whatever you want to call them. And this is the manuscript of the Pearl Poet. And this is an illustration. And what is so fascinating about this is that this is the first printing of the Pearl Poet manuscript. It had not been printed before the Early English Text Society decided it was so important to print. And so also I'd highly recommend, this is the manuscript of the Cotton Nero. And Cotton was a very famous antiquarian book collector during the dissolution of the monasteries. There were a bunch of books that were formerly held in church collections, and then some book hunters went around and collected a bunch of books, and then they often found themselves in the hands of people like Robert Cotton, I'm pretty sure is his name, but and then luckily they were saved for us today, hundreds of years later, and then we can get a very cheap printing of it, which is just amazing. So anyway, Pearl, which I don't know, it's one of the most beautiful poems in the English language. Cleanness, Patience, and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So all in this volume here. Anyway, I wanted to make this a short video, just emphasizing that you should go out and find some Early English Text Society volumes. They are still currently running 150 years later. You can subscribe to the Early English Text Society. I'll put a link to the website if you want to. One, just being totally honest, one of the difficulties is there is only so much fascinating stuff, but you can get back printings if you subscribe currently. So if any of the things I showed you look really cool, I think all of them except for the last two are still currently in print. So you can currently get them from the Oxford University Press. So I think that'll be that. And yeah, I'm gearing up to make a really cool in-depth video of the Oxford English Dictionary. So hang tight for that. All right. Death is a game, boss.